pantomime season hasn't come early. It's here year-round. Not in the theatres, but everywhere else. The USA now has much of the appearance of, if not a panto, then a desperate soap opera, one of those daytime efforts. Mostly ridiculous characters and a script cobbled together from jokes from unseasonal Christmas crackers. Politicians who lecture their citizens and the wider world about democracy night and day have, metaphorically at least, bumped off their own president, dropping him, apparently against his will, or what remains of his will in that demonstrably ruined brain, as their candidate for the upcoming election. The US Democratic Party has thereby done away with democracy, surely negating the legitimacy of its own existence. In a time when democracy is said to be threatened as never before, when democracy is said to be the be-all and end-all of civilization, the Democratic Party high-ups simply did away with the man they had insisted was their democratically chosen candidate, being their own President Joe Biden, suddenly identified as not fit for purpose. After years of stumbling and mumbling as dementia rose around him like floodwater, and replacing him with a woman no one wants in power or ever wanted. Biden doesn't seem to have been removed because he has dementia. Rather, it had to be done only because too many ordinary people had finally found his dementia impossible to overlook any longer, impossible to deny. That move followed the attempted shooting of President Donald Trump, of course. For the most powerful nation on earth, to lose one contender for the top job might be bad luck, but to come within a hair's breadth of losing both in the same week looks downright careless. It also appeared brazen, the self-appointed elite showing who's boss. Without so much as a by your leave, you might say, Biden's name has been erased from the ticket and laughing-gas Kamala Harris's name has been scribbled in its place. And on a dime, the same politicians and mainstream media talking heads who only weeks ago were assuring audiences Biden was as sharp as a tack are now all in for Kamala, voted for by no one. Commentators more seasoned than me have pointed out that if those events had unfolded in a country so-called Democrats didn't like, Russia maybe, they'd be shouting from the rooftops about a coup, which is effectively what it was. Whatever else, it all looks ludicrous, or perhaps downright sinister. The deep state, the Leviathan, whatever you want to call the entity running things, has had no option but to come to the surface where all can see it. It had to surface, in desperation perhaps, to carry out blatant acts of tyranny before sinking into the depths once more. That descent into the darkness, out of sight, might best be obscured, covered up by something eye-catchingly catastrophic. A world war, maybe. On the other side of the aisle, Donald Trump has announced as his running mate J.D. Vance, a senator from Ohio, a former Marine, a successful author and businessman, a lawyer, praised by union leaders for standing up for the workers. Vance also has ties to Peter Thiel, entrepreneur, billionaire and all-round Svengali by all accounts, the man behind PayPal and, more recently, Palantir, a private company backed by the CIA that harvests data about citizens, spying on them to an extent George Orwell's Big Brother could scarcely have dreamt of. Vance and Trump have called for an end of the war in Ukraine, sure enough, but there's plenty more war where that came from, out with the old, in with the new. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu received several ovations in the Capitol building in Washington this week in front of a joint session of Congress. Politicians, most of whom have undeniable ties to AIPAC, being the Israeli lobby. Netanyahu told Republicans and Democrats alike that the war in Gaza was America's war, as well as Israel's. He said that Iran is America's most radical and murderous enemy. He told protesters, many holding placards declaring him a wanted war criminal in reference to an arrest warrant sought by the International Criminal Court, that they were Iran's useful idiots. Whispers are already circulating that the so-called lone shooter in Pennsylvania, the jeans and t-shirt clad 20-year-old without an online presence or much of a past at all, who apparently came within a whisker of the killing that might have ignited a civil war in America. Speculation that he was an asset of, guess where? Iran. Anyone spotting a pattern here? As one war closes, another one opens, just in time. These are black days, bloody days. Is there anyone anywhere near the levers of power who prefers peace to war? Here in Britain, we've got the head of the army, General Sir Rowley Walker, telling anyone who'll listen that we have to be ready to fight Russia, China, Iran and North Korea, what he called an axis of upheaval in 3 years' time. War is peace, as we were told by the Uniparty in George Orwell's 1984. Also, freedom is slavery and ignorance is strength, although Orwell meant it all as a warning, not an instruction manual. The sense of chaos, destruction and impending doom is so pervasive now, it's hard not to draw the conclusion it's all just fakery. Confected fear porn designed and rolled out so as to get the herd stampeding once more, get them panicked and keep them panicked. American journalist H.L. Mencken said, "The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary." Wherever else we are now, however close we might be to catastrophe of one sort or another, global war, economic collapse, cyber attack, aliens from Mars, who knows, we're surely approaching peak fear-mongering. The threat of the sort of chaos that hurts the billions of regular people and enriches and empowers that relative handful of already rich and powerful. The evidence is everywhere. In his novel Blood Meridian, Cormac McCarthy said, "War was always here. Before man was, war waited for him, the ultimate trade, awaiting its ultimate practitioner." We have now, if not the ultimate practitioners of war, certainly the most enthusiastic and committed we've seen for a while. War in Ukraine has been going on for more than 2 years. Counts of the dead there vary from the tens of thousands to well over 500,000, and the gears of the meat grinder are still mindlessly, cheerfully whirling. A report published in The Lancet earlier this month predicted a death toll in Gaza in excess of 186,000 people, most of them women and children. There are presently 45 armed conflicts in the Middle East and North Africa, 35 elsewhere in Africa, 21 in Asia, 7 in Europe and 6 in Latin America. The US has as many general officers in service today as it had during World War II, when its armed forces totalled 14 million fighting men. NATO's senior military figure, Admiral Rob Bauer, has urged a whole-of-society approach to war against Russia. Here in Britain and in the USA, politicians with a taste for war raise the spectre of citizen armies, which surely means, in the end, conscription for the citizens of both countries, our children. American Major General Smedley Butler was that nation's most decorated Marine when he died in 1940. He said war's a racket and always had been. He said it was the most profitable racket, the most vicious, in which profits are counted in dollars and losses in lives and bodies. And here we are in 2024, when some of the wealthiest and therefore the most influential people in the world, because money talks, a few people made wealthier beyond imagining in the last 2 or 3 years alone, a time that has seen the greatest transfer of wealth from poor to rich in history. When some of those people preach that there are too many people in the world anyway. Birth rates fall all around the world. Entire populations are failing to make enough babies even to continue their existences. And yet those among us with the loudest voices preach population reduction. The eugenicists, the Malthusians, those behind Agenda 2030, transhumanism and the like, are never far away and always anti-human to the marrow of their bones. War will cut the numbers efficiently in a single, hot, bright moment if the war hawks get their way and the nuclear missiles fly. The internet is awash with a meme bearing a quote attributed to Albert Einstein. Whether he said the words or not, the sentiment sounds about right. "I do not know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Here's the thing. I heard someone say this week that when the Leviathan is exposed, it's because something somewhere has gone badly wrong with the plan. When the political elites in America have no option but to drop the mask and reveal themselves for what they are, what it's all about, which is power, it's only desperate measures to prevent that power slipping from their grasp. When it's so obviously not about preserving democracy or respecting, far less acting upon the will of the people. When their intentions are so barefacedly corrupt, when their ambition is so plain to see, when all roads lead to money and war, we must ask, again, what are we supposed to be contemplating sending our children off to war to fight for?